Hello and welcome to SideQuest. This is our weekly video game show here at Geekverse. I'm your host, Dylan Must, and I have with me Kid Xbox, Taylor Field. How is it going, my friend?
It's going good. It's going good. I'm happy to be here as always, and I'm excited. Excited to talk this week's topics with you.
Yeah, we have a nice mixed bag today. You know, it's funny, on Friday or Saturday or something, I messaged you and I was like, Taylor, you got any ideas for SideQuest Monday? Like, there's nothing in the news. I haven't really been playing a lot of games. Like, what are we going to talk about? And you're like, I don't know. I don't really have many ideas myself. And so I was looking through my backlog of many SideQuest notes for potential topic ideas. But then all of a sudden, just random news things popped up that I thought could be pretty interesting to talk about, and I played some other games over the weekend. So I'm excited for this one. It's gonna be a fun mixed bag, as I said. Just a few quick shoutouts here. Join the Discord. You know, it's a good place to discuss all this good stuff. Join the Patreon to get episodes early and ad free. You can leave a review for the podcast to help it grow. You can go leave a wish list on my game on Steam. It's called Potion Problem in the description there. I'm gonna announce a release date very soon. I promise. And the game's coming out soon as well. So you know, keep your eyes out for that. And then I don't even know, what are we doing this week. We got the season of X, so we got all sorts of X-Men things coming out. In our newscast, we're gonna break down the new Wolverine and Deadpool trailer, which I haven't watched yet. So that's what we got in the news. I think there's a movie coming out soon. I'm seeing Challengers this week, but I don't even know what's. Nothing's coming out this week. Maybe in the next couple of weeks we got some other stuff.
There
But
is
any
Knuckles
shout-outs?
dropping.
Oh,
The
okay.
TV show.
That's very video game related. So
Yeah,
is that a binger, or is that a week by week
it's a
situation?
week by week.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Kirkland's on board with that. I don't know who else is on board with it or who's joining.
If
But I think
Kirkland's not
I'm
with
gonna
you,
be
are you
there.
doing it solo
I'm tempted to. Yeah, I
on
mean,
a
if
week to
he's-
week basis? That would be a lot. Maybe like
that's
how you do your bad
stressful.
batch sometimes. I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe I might do that. If he's not committed to it, then I might switch the formula up a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes you got to go back to formula. And sometimes you got to
Yeah.
switch up the formula altogether. But yeah, either way, just stay tuned to the feeds to see all that stuff as it drops. Okay, let's get into it. The first thing I wanted to do is, last week myself, Travis, and Kirkland talked about the latest Star Wars Outlaws trailer, and in that we talked about this kind of controversy around this Jabba the Hutt mission and whatnot, which is like apparently exclusive. But then I don't know, the director, someone related to the game, has come out and said that Jabba's still in the game for everyone, even if you don't have the special edition. But I guess there is still an exclusive quest that's in this special edition. But just a correction that we were being pretty hard on them for this thing last week, and it seems like maybe Jabba's still in the game to some extent. So it's maybe not quite as grimy as we said. So I just wanted to put that correction out there. Did you watch that trailer at all? That newest trailer for Outlaws? Any thoughts on that? Did that change your hype level at all?
I mean, to me, it gave me Jedi Fallen Order vibes, except you're not playing as a Jedi. You're just existing in the same time period, which
Yeah.
that's fair. I'm not hugely sold on this kind of the smuggler life in Star Wars. It's not really kind of my avenue. I mean, Han
Right.
Solo is a cool character, but I'm more of like a bounty hunter, Boba Fett kind of guy.
Sure.
But I think you guys are rightfully positioned to call it grimy. I still think that any kind of mission that's at least something like this that's kind of back behind like a paywall to some degree, I think it's still pretty grimy. It's not fair because I'm sure you can interact with Jabba in other regards, but I just think that you should be able to access everything. And I thought we were past these days, like the odd like bonus mission to get an item, which doesn't have like a main impact on the story, that's fine. But if your bonus mission is like a huge character and a Star Wars icon,
Yeah.
that kind of sucks. So
It's weird that I feel like it's been happening more again. Maybe I'm just cherry picking here, but like Hogwarts Legacy had that exclusive quest, which was like a horror themed haunted house thing, which is like, that's a very, I still haven't gone back and downloaded the game again since they've added that to Xbox to try it out myself. But it's weird that was a thing too, and it seemed like a really interesting thing. Now that wasn't quite like, oh, here's this big character that you know and love that they're putting up in these trailers. But yeah, it's something that I hope just the backlash that they got from this announcement is assigned to other companies, at least hopefully within Ubisoft and EA and all those kind of guys, that like, yeah, don't do that. You know, you can have DLC come out later, but it's weird to have exclusive content and then put that in your like main trailer as a big selling point when your game doesn't have a ton of other like huge established characters. So anyway, I hope hopefully that scares people off from doing a similar thing. Next up, let's talk about some Fallout. So there's a few different things here with Fallout. One is, of course, the TV show came out recently. Me, you, and Travis did a review on that, and season 2 has officially been confirmed, which is great. If you go back to that review, we all really enjoyed it, but I definitely had a couple things holding me back, which was that mainly the ending of it was left very open in a lot of character storylines. It felt like not even really a cliffhanger. It was just like the middle of the story. So it's good to see that that is going to be the case. And we are getting another season, at least another season, to help go deeper into some of those stories. Very excited for that, especially with some of the teases. I don't think we need to spoil the ending of it necessarily. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't know. I'm sure you're happy about that too, right? You enjoyed the show just as much as me and Travis. But I also wanted to check this out. So the through the Fallout Shelter, which if anyone forgets is like the mobile game that they released around the time of Fallout 4, Bethesda, I guess, puts like known characters in that along with like the random settlers and whatnot that'll appear in there. And they added 4 characters from the show in the game. So that through that we can derive the stats of these characters as they would appear in a Fallout game, which is a fun thought experiment to look at. So we have, of course, Lucy the Ghoul and Maximus, the 3 protagonists, and then randomly Ma June, who's like from Philly. She's like the shopkeeper there. So it's like I don't know why she was like the 4th character in this, and maybe they'll add more over time. But it seems weird that they have like, yeah, here's the 3 big protagonists, the people on the poster, and then Ma is like in there as well. Very, very strange. Before we break down these stats, I gotta ask you, like, where do you think, Fallout is an RPG. When you start the game, you have stats, and as you level up, you get more stats. When we look at these stats, like, where do you think these are in the character's journey? Like, if we look at Lucy's stats, is that her fresh out the vault, or is that her at the end of this series? Or is that, if there's more seasons, is this like her in the future? Like, what do you think we should look at for that?
I take it that this is literally Lucy fresh out of the vault. When I look at this stuff,
Okay.
I think it's all there. It all kind of makes sense with just who she is, and she, I mean, with looking at how she survived in that vault too, and how she had all the information, all the training and clubs she was in. I think it fits.
Okay. So let's see how that stands up. So Lucy, here are her stats: strength 4, perception 7, endurance 6, charisma 5, intelligence 6, agility 5, and luck 7. I mean, just right off the bat, it's very much like this is kind of the stats like Mario would have if he was in Fallout, in terms of just being like the protagonist that has very balanced stats. Like most of these are close to 5 or like 1 off, and at most you have 2 that are off, and none that even drop to like the 3 status. So she's not bad at anything particularly, but she doesn't excel at anything, is kind of what these stats are telling me. Is there anything weird or off about these stats to you?
Well, not necessarily, except for luck. I guess she's considered lucky to survive the wasteland, but she definitely didn't have a lot of luck at the start, though. That's for dang sure.
Yeah, and luck is, even in Elder Scrolls or Fallout, is such a weird stat where you can never really see what it's doing. Whereas like other stats are more clear of like, oh, if I upgrade my agility, maybe I'll like have higher accuracy with a one-handed weapons, or like I'll take less fall damage. Like those kind of things, you can like notice them when you're playing, but luck is never really that obvious. Like even I think in Elder Scrolls, it's just like, and maybe even the description of Fallout is just affects everything you do in a small way. And it's just like kind of how they describe it. So personally, and actually maybe the reason is I've never noticed it is because I never really put stats into luck. And maybe if you did a luck playthrough, maybe you could notice that kind of thing more. But to me, it always just seemed like kind of like a dump stat. Like I'm not really going to put my hard-earned points into that. For me, I feel like maybe agility, I would give her some. I don't want to spoil too much of the show, but I'll just say this. There's one point where she gets caught, and maybe that's bad agility, but there's another point where she like fights off a robot in a way that feels very agility,
Totally.
like extensive to me. So I feel like maybe I'd bump her agility. I think she's smart, and I think perception, like those are good stats, but of course she comes from like a different background, so it makes sense that she doesn't have as much kind of knowledge around the stuff out in the wasteland, so I can understand that. I'm just going to bring this up now, that really the only weird stat for her with me is the charisma of being 5, and it's directly because of Maximus. So let's get into Maximus's stats next. He's got 7 strength, 6 perception, 6 endurance, 5 charisma, 4 intelligence, agility 7, and luck 5. I just don't see a world where Maximus and Lucy have the same charisma stat. That just does not track for the TV show that I watched personally.
I agree. I don't think their charisma was there. I feel like his intelligence should have been like a little bit lower because he was just
Even lower than a 4.
even lower than a 4. I mean, he did not have many points put into that in the show with how he was operating and working as a knight. So
Yeah, and there's, the tricky thing of like charisma and like perception, because I feel like Maximus's like social perception is particularly weak, and I don't know if you'd consider that like a charisma stat or a perception stat, but I would definitely I would agree with you. Intelligence, I'd drop that by 1. I'd drop his charisma by 1 as well. Maybe I'll give him an extra endurance point or something. He goes through a lot in that show, and he kind of endures.
well, I
quite a
agree.
bit.
I think the strength should come down just a little bit, and then the endurance should be bumped up a little bit more.
Yeah, and then luck, I mean, I don't know. Is he unlucky? Is he lucky? I think 5's fine, good enough there, right in the middle, right? And then agility is a weird one too, because for any like Brotherhood type characters, like they're just so big and chunky and bulky that you don't really think of them as particularly agile. And of course, he does spend time outside the armor as well. But yeah, there's just some weird stuff with the charisma stat overall. And then jumping over to the ghoul, the great Walton Goggins has a strength of 5, perception 6, endurance 7, charisma 7, intelligence 4, agility 7, and luck 4. To me, this is way off. This is a huge miss. Like I just feel like the ghoul should be a way higher level character than these guys. Like if there's tiers within Fallout Shelter of characters you're getting, he would be like a legendary. I mean, he's been around for so long. He's way smarter than a 4. Probably a good amount stronger than a 5. Perception, I'd say, should be higher than a 6. Endurance and charisma at 7. Okay, that's pretty high stat. I'll give him that. Agility, I'd maybe even give him a bonus point there. And say luck, I guess he's kind of... He got unlucky, but I don't think he is generally an unlucky guy.
I think that's based on him being a ghoul. I think that's why they're saying that luck is so low.
I don't know. I mean... I'll throw you to the opposite way. We see so many times in Fallout, if you're walking around, if this is in the TV show or the games, if you're just walking around, the amount of times you see like a skeleton, someone who just got killed from the bombs going off in that moment. They're dead in their kitchen table, that kind of thing. He survived that, and now he has like essentially eternal life. To me, that's lucky. He got out pretty well relative to other people who just died because of the blast. And from what we see, because that's like a spoiler or episode 1 thing, right? Like, it's pretty lucky, I think, that he survived that situation at all.
Well, then does that factor in his endurance? That's 7 points he's got there.
You're right. Maybe that's more of an endurance thing than it is a luck thing. And maybe his perception should be bad because of not seeing the bomb thing originally. His kid found it first, and she's like a little kid, she's distracted.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a spoiler. There were a lot of red flags.
Is like, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
It's
a lot of red flags for him. So yeah, perception maybe a little lower, but like.
Do you agree with me in general though that his stats he should be a really high level type of character?
He should, absolutely, because his intelligence is lower than Lucy's, and I don't buy that. And Lucy is like 6, and he's 4.
That's pretty whack for sure.
But yeah, charisma. I think charisma could honestly make it higher because he was so charismatic. I was loving it.
Yeah, it's true. He was, but I also feel like he's the kind of guy who, this is the thing too. Once again, like Elder Scrolls, it kind of like they delineate some of these stats more, but there's like intimidation part of charisma, like or related to like in Elder Scrolls, it's the personality stat. And so if you have a really high personality stat, you're better at intimidating people. And that's where I feel like his strength is this with intimidation. Now within Fallout, I think that would actually usually go to more of a strength thing. Like if you had a speech check that was like you intimidating someone, I think it would more often be a strength than a charisma. But I'd have to go play the games again to see what kind of interactions they are. But yeah, I think you're right. But I think even his strength, like he's more of a gunslinger type guy, but like at least a 6. Like, come on, like I think he's a pretty tough guy.
Yeah.
And then Ma June, the great Ma June, strength 5, perception 7, endurance 5, charisma 7, intelligence 6, agility 4, and luck 6. The hardest one with this is like, she's not in the show a whole lot. She's in 1 episode, I think. Maybe it stretches into 2 episodes, but not in a lot. So it's hard to gain too much information. But I don't know if she's that charismatic. That seems high. And I also that's really the only one that speaks because maybe she's super smart. I don't know. She seems smart enough. But charisma 7 seems like okay, that's being a bit kind to Mrs. June here.
I look at her stats and I look at Lucy's and I feel like they're quite similar. But again, she's got higher strength, same perception,
Yeah.
lower endurance, higher charisma, same intelligence, which again I don't feel like that is warranted because
Right.
she's a shop owner up there. She should be a lot more smarter than what Lucy's bringing to the table, I would imagine.
Yeah, if anything I'd give her like an extra endurance for her ability to like survive out there and maybe drop the intelligence by a smidge. But maybe I don't know if she uses being a shopkeeper as her way to survive in the wasteland. Like maybe you probably need some smarts to be a good shop owner, especially in a town like this when anyone such as the ghoul can just come through at any point and blow stuff up, you know?
Yeah.
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 And who knows if she's lucky or not? I mean, that's how can any of us say? Any thoughts on this? Is there any characters you would like to see from the show in particular that you'd like to see them add to Shelter? Maybe they're already in Shelter. I don't even know. I don't know who's in there currently, but yeah, anyone you want to see from the show get added?
I'd like to see maybe Lucy's brother, just for the fun of it.
That'd be fun. I'd like that.
Definitely her dad. I'd like to see her dad in there.
Yeah, that as well. I'm trying to think who else are some fun characters in there. Maybe the Squire Maximus's funny homie there. That could be
Thaddeus,
funny.
yeah,
Because I
yeah.
could see him having like comically low stats. And there's one I
Yeah.
want to say, but it might be a spoiler. So I'll say if you know, you know. There's one guy in particular that I'd really like to see what his stats would be. I'll just leave it
Do
there.
robots get are robots characters? Do they get
Ooh.
stats?
When I played Shelter back in 2015 or 16 when it came out, I don't remember there being a robot in my like as a recruitable character in the way that these characters are. That seems like a miss if they haven't added robot characters this far into the game's life cycle. So hopefully they add that kind of thing. I'm not sure, but I think a couple of robots could be fun to add in there. Yeah.
Cool.
And then lastly, on the Fallout side of things, I wanted to shout this out. So, of course, the show has been a big success. People are really enjoying it. And then on top of that, it's getting good reviews. Seems like the viewership's clearly there enough for them to go ahead with a Season 2 confirmation at this point. Because of that, naturally, a lot of people are flocking to the games. They want to get more and more Fallout. And so a lot of these Fallout games have been getting really just high play counts on Steam, which is one of the easiest places to track that kind of thing. And I think in particular, New Vegas, I believe, has hit the highest ever concurrent player count that it's ever had, at least through Steam. I'm guessing when the game first came out across all the platforms, there was more people playing than there is today necessarily. But still, that's really cool to see a bump like that for a game that came out in 2010, 2011. And then Fallout 4 as well. Definitely not breaking its concurrent count, but still having a ton of new players. Fallout 76 has a bunch of players jumping in there as well. I'm sure Fallout 3 is as well. So it's interesting to see this kind of thing. And obviously, we talked about last week how they have this next-gen patch coming out for Fallout 4. So that's a lot of people are going to jump in for that as well, coming out in just a few short days here. But otherwise, it's like, man, with Season 2 coming out, and clearly, Bethesda's working on Elder Scrolls 6 right now. That's going to be another few years before that comes out. And then another few years after that would be their next Fallout game. It's like, man, it seems like a total whiff that they didn't have any other Fallout games kind of in development from other studios. I think spin-offs would be a great opportunity for them to be doing these kind of things right now. And maybe they are, and we just haven't seen that announcement yet. But clearly nothing was ready to line up with Season 1. And I just can't imagine that the next Fallout game from Bethesda at least is going to be ready in the time of Season 2, because that'll probably be 2-3 years from now, that kind of thing. Maybe a bit longer because the sets are huge and the production value is crazy. So maybe let's say 3 years out, 2027 is when that Season 2 comes out. There's no way the next mainline Fallout game is going to come out. So I don't know. Do you have any ideas? Should Bethesda and now Xbox as the parent company be doing to kind of capitalize on this I don't know, fervor from fans wanting more Fallout right now?
I mean, yeah, if you were to time it with some big expansion or something in game, that would have been ideal. I mean, with Prime Games, they put Fallout 76, excuse me, on Xbox and PC for free, and so I redeemed both. I don't know if I'm
nice.
ever going to get around to them, but
And I
I'm
think I'll say too is I think Xbox like on their claim rewards thing, whatever that is, there's currently like a bundle for 76 on there for
oh
some items. So if you do, you should at least claim that, and then when you jump
yeah.
in, you'll have some bonus things you can use. And I think that was branded around the TV show, so that was like kind of their best offering, along with the Fallout 4 next gen or current gen version. I guess those are kind of the things they did have, yeah, for what it's worth. But that's a good shout out as well that there's for free to get into 76. That's a good thing for a microtransaction-y game like that.
I think that's just making it easily accessible is what you want to do, because I think it's yeah. How many Fallouts are on Games Pass? Is it 4?
I mean, all of them. I mean,
Oh, really? All of them?
although Fallout 1 and 2 and Tactics wouldn't be on like Xbox, like they were
Right.
never ported or anything like that. But yeah, on Xbox, at least Series X, and I imagine Xbox One, you'd have Fallout 3, 4, 76, New Vegas. And then on PC, I'm sure they have all those old ones as well, like 1, 2, Tactics.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, yeah, Shelter wouldn't really make sense. And then I don't know if any other Fallout games exist. I might be missing one or two. But yeah.
Well, yeah. I just think you make them very easily accessible. Having a big expansion would have been really, really ideal. Because yeah, I mean, anything game related. I mean, 76 is the latest one, and I don't know when the last expansion came out for that.
Yeah, 76, it did have the Atlantic City. That was last year at some point, I believe that came out. So it's pretty recent. But I think people generally want, like, obviously there's people flocking to 76 right now. But I don't know if that's what people want necessarily when they want to jump back into Fallout, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned this before, and I'll say it again. That like, man, I think the best thing they can do in a short period of time, like let's say they couldn't really conceive of how successful this show would be and how much people would be flocking to these games. What can they do? Let's say they hadn't started anything yet. What can they do before season 2 comes out? I think the best thing they should and can do is just having a full-on remaster, not a remake. I think a remaster's fine, but maybe you do got to do a bit of a remake energy for it, for both Fallout 3 and New Vegas. And I say those two because they're on the same engine, and I imagine it's quite a big project for either of them, but I think it's a bit of a two birds one stone situation, where if you can figure out the tech for one of them, ideally you can kind of do it for the other one as well. And I think a big thing for those games is they both had a ton of DLC. Like I think 4 DLC packs each, like maybe 3 or 4. And even me, I'm a huge Fallout fan. I've played those games a lot. But it's one of those situations where I play the games at launch, like before that DLC was there. And then when I go back nowadays, it's like, okay, I'm just going to go back. I want to play through the main story again or something. And I never get around to the DLCs. I've never played any of the DLC for New Vegas or Fallout 3. 2 games that I love. Yeah, New Vegas is one of my favorite games ever. Maybe I've dipped in a tiny bit. And so I think if you have that remaster where you bundle in, you Game of the Year edition it, right? Have all the DLC in there. Better frame rates, fix some more of those bugs. 4K textures and whatnot. You could add some extra bells and whistles. I don't really think you need to, but I think that's the move. And you have both of those come out. Of course, they drop into Game Pass, but those would be also a perfect thing. Like put that on PlayStation as well. Who cares? Like that's they've been doing that more and more. Those are things where like, okay, those legacy titles exist on PlayStation already. Fuck it, put them on there. Try and get it on a Switch too. By the time Season 2 comes out, the Switch sequel will be out there as well. And I think that would be huge. I would buy both those games again. I mean, they're on Game Pass, so actually I wouldn't, but I would play them both again. I'd buy an extra version to get some bonus content maybe. So I think that's the easiest thing that they should do. But I also just think now that it's under the Xbox umbrella, like give that IP to other studios. Let the Wasteland team, they have another cool looking game, that Clockwork game coming out, but give them, let them make a Fallout game. Why not? Some of those people worked on the original games, right, back in the day. So it makes sense there. But yeah, just all sorts of other spin-offs. I don't know. Let Obsidian make another Fallout game, or just some other studio. There's so many. Let Tango Gameworks make some like horror Fallout shorter experience. That'd be so cool. So I think they should just crack open the doors, be a little less protective would be ideally the thing. And if you have canon issues with it, then make the game in like the UK or something where we haven't been before.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, let people do whatever they want with it. Like that would be maybe the route. But I think that's That seems like the easiest thing. Is just a remaster for 3 and New Vegas. Those games are old enough now where I think you could get away with that, and some better gunplay in general would really do those games well in the modern setting.
Yeah, I didn't even think about going to like another continent. That would be one of the coolest things, actually, in retrospect.
Yeah, and like I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what in the lore, like what the other parts of the world are looking like. I think Canada got like majorly fucked up and is now like owned by the States. I think that is one thing that is canon, but those places still exist, right? They would just be not Canadian anymore, I guess. But yeah, I don't know in the canon if they've established like what's going on with New Zealand as a place. But I think that could be cool. But also I think it just, who cares? Just say it's like a non-canon game or whatever. You can just let other things happen within that realm and connect it later. Like I think that was even a thing recently where like New Vegas, I guess, has like never technically been canon according to Bethesda, but then like Todd Howard's saying like, oh yeah, it's like canon. But then it, like that opens a can of worms of like, well, New Vegas has different endings, like drastically different endings, unlike Fallout 3 and 4 that, you know, slight different changes can happen based on your choices. But yeah, New Vegas is like wildly different. So, but they're just like, oh yeah, it's canon. And it's like, well, what do you mean? You got to pick an ending. Like, and they're not going to go that far, of course. So yeah, I don't know. That's what I would like to see. I don't, maybe that'd be a fun like full topic someday is to pitch like full spin-offs. So maybe I'll put that in the can and we could do that again sometime. But I think, yeah, the easy answer for now is definitely a remaster. But there you go. There's some Fallout fun stuff. Let's talk about some of the games you've been playing. Taylor, do you wanna start any games you've been playing you want to shout out here?
Yeah, I can't remember how long ago it was, but I think I mentioned in passing that I was kind of getting back into Pokemon Violet a little bit.
Yes, I remember that. Yep.
So I've kind of been expanding upon that. I've just been kind of getting more into the Pokemon world a little bit again. I've been going back and playing a little bit more of my Alpha Sapphire, and a little bit of my Pokemon Sword as well. So there's just been a few Pokemon things.
Sorry, just to cut in. When you say Alpha Sapphire, like, do you mean like you're going back to an old playthrough, and you're just playing more in it, or are you starting a new thing, or what's going on?
Not starting a new thing, but just going back and just trying to like do a little shiny hunting, collect a few more things, stuff like that. So I'm just kind of like getting back and re-immersed into Pokemon. I've taken up maybe like a little venture that I'm going to try and build upon with regards to Pokemon, but we'll see how it goes. Okay. Yeah.
Interesting. So I got to ask, you got back into Pokemon a little bit because of, sorry, which one do you have, Scarlet or Violet?
I have Scarlet.
So you got into it.
I said Violet.
You said Violet, but you meant Scarlet, is what you're saying?
I need to look at my game case because
you can't remember.
I can't remember.
What color is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Red or purple? Okay, so you've been playing red or purple, but now you're going back to older ones. So does that mean you're not playing Scarlet and or Violet? You're just it broke down the dam, but now you're just like, actually I want to go play a better Pokemon game? What's the situation?
Well, that's pretty much it. Because like every so often I see Pokemon pages I follow, they have mystery gift codes, and so that's kind of my segue back into playing Pokemon Violet. So I will put the code in, I'll redeem the Pokemon from mystery gift to the internet, and just stockpile them because I'm a Pokemon collector. I've got a very I think we joked about this a long time ago. Starting with Pokemon Sapphire, like almost 2 decades ago. I started collecting Pokemon and keeping the event Pokemon, mythical Pokemon, in like their untouched forms. So they don't even have like a smidge of XP on them. They haven't been used in any combat. They're just their raw, pure form. They're collectibles, in my opinion. And so I've been
you keep them in the case. You don't battle with them, or
no, don't battle. Yeah. So I keep them mint like that, and I've been doing that since the original Pokemon Sapphire, and I've just been migrating them from game to game to game. And now we got Pokemon Bank, which is great because it's all just in the cloud now. So,
right.
But
what is Alpha Sapphire on? What's the console for that?
That's 3DS.
Okay, so what does that mean with because they just shut off the online and stuff. So can you still like do all that trading and that you need to do?
I haven't tried, but I'm curious, and that's one of the reasons why I'm curious how it's going to work out, because I've got everything still there, like the apps on the DS, and so I'm curious if I can still do the migration. Not the end of the world if I can't. I'm not going back to necessarily try and like bring things over, but I'm going back to just try and like explore a couple little things. There's a few videos I've been watching where if you have certain Pokemon in the game doing certain things, then you can access certain other things in the game and stuff like
Right.
that. And there's a few other things I want to just explore, certain areas that were not in the original Pokemon Sapphire. And
Oh,
I've just been
okay.
kind of feeling that nostalgia a little bit.
Nice.
So,
That's
yeah.
cool. Tell me, what does shiny hunting look like for you? Because to me, when I picture that, I feel like you got guides open. You're going to like a specific spot. You're like, running around in circles in this specific part of like piece of grass, and it's very grindy, which to me is not what I really associate with Taylor Field as a gamer. Like, doesn't seem like really you. So, what does your shiny hunting regimen look like?
I kind of got a knack for doing the fishing, and I managed to get, oh, what is it? It was called a Dragalge, I believe. And he's
Is that a
kind of like,
Pokemon? I've never heard of that in my life.
yeah, Dragalge. He's kind of like, he's a poison dragon type, and he's kind of like a, what would you call it? Like a seaweed kind of looking dragon.
Oh my, he is a
Pokemon?
seaweed looking guy. He's cool. I've never heard of
Yeah.
this guy until right now.
So I managed to get a shiny one of him. And then I've gotten, what else did I get? I got a few others, like a Corsola. I got one of them, a shiny one. And there's a couple others. I personally find that the fishing was a lot easier, and there's certain spots that are more yielding than others. But I remember you always gotta be paying attention and careful, because I've accidentally killed a shiny. It was a Budew, which is what evolves into like the Rosalie.
Right.
Rosalia. And I remember it popped up and I didn't think anything of it, and I killed it and I continued on. But I thought in retrospect, I'm like, man, it was green, but the one color on it was a different color than I remember. And I Googled it and it was a shiny. I thought, man, oh, you idiot.
That's heartbreaking, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever encountered a shiny. I mean, I've played 2 or 3 Pokemon games really. Not a ton. I've played more of the spin-offs than I've played like the mainline games, but I don't think I've ever seen a shiny in the wild. Even in my Pokemon Go days, and I went pretty ham in the Go days when it first came out at least.
They've added a lot more in Pokemon Go, which I mean, that's something I still do play. I think
Yeah.
it's interesting how they've merged that with the mainline games. I haven't transferred from Pokemon Go into the main games. I don't know how that
How
works.
often do you play Go?
Whenever I'm in a new city, whenever I'm on vacation, I whip it out. Always.
Okay, but not in Kelowna. Not the
in
day
Kelowna,
to day.
I do. Whenever, for example, like whenever I am kind of like out on my own, just walking around, or I'm downtown, I'll whip it out. Events too. I'm usually. That sounds inappropriate.
Yeah, I want to clip that. Yeah. When I'm downtown, I'll whip it out.
Whenever there's a kind of like events going on, I'll see what kind of raids are happening nearby and that sort of stuff. So I keep my foot in the door for the most part, but yeah, I think that it's something I'm not ever going to be sure if I can just like give up. I mean, Pokemon is just such a wonderful thing. I'm pulled up my Pokemon Home because I'm trying to see, like, give you an example of a shiny.
I mean, I definitely, I usually they're like kind of like a purpley teal. I feel like I mean, they're probably very different depending on the Pokemon.
They change. So like, here's an example. I don't know how well you can see that, but there's like regular Rayquaza.
Yeah. Okay.
And we got like the shiny one. So he's
That's
black.
cool.
It's
Yeah.
like very, very nice. So
Nice.
there's a whole nostalgic kick for me. And like Pokemon Blue was my first Pokemon game on my nice purple Game Boy Color. I remember those days, and the save didn't work on it, so I would always get as far as I could, but it was busted. It wouldn't save. So when I would turn it back on, I'd have to restart from the beginning, and it was very unfortunate.
Right. Yeah, that's too bad. I wish they would add more Pokemon games to Nintendo Switch Online. That seems to be like a blind spot where they have the Game Boy trading card game on there, I think, which I should go check that out actually just to see what it's like. But I really want them to add, what is it, Emeralds on the GBA, right? Which I've heard from a lot of people is like their favorite or the best. And I just love the GBA so much that I would go ham on that if they added such a thing. But I don't know if they will, because I feel like they do so many of these remakes and they make so much money off Pokemon that it's probably doesn't make sense financially to just drop a big expensive game like that on there. But then there's other ones that I say this, like, they could get a lot of money if they just sold those games, but they just drop them on that service as well. So it's weird what they choose to do and not do. But I hope they do add more of that stuff on there. They do like the spin-offs, right? They have Coliseum and whatnot on there, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't have any of the mainline games, I don't think.
That's a shame. Like, and I a couple years ago, I started collecting some of those old games. I got Pokemon Yellow, I got
Nice.
Ruby, Sapphire, of course. I got Emerald, Fire Red, Leaf Green, like Pokemon
Wow.
Black, White, and then yeah, all the some of the other later ones. I got rid of a couple a while ago, and I wish I didn't. They're like
Mm,
Pokemon White 2, stuff like that. But
right.
um, yeah, I've got a thing for collecting those older Pokemon games. And I got Heart Gold Soul Silver, which I love it.
Mm.
It's actually like it's like mint in the box. It's not I opened it up of course, but I got the Poke Walker with it and everything like that.
Nice.
And yeah.
Yeah, Pokemon kind of a weird spot because I feel like the 3DS was a huge era for Pokemon because you got like 3 mainline games, and by three, that turns into like 6, and then there's like all these other versions.
Hmm.
I think right there was like because Black and White was on there.
Diamond and
That
Pearl, I think, was the first one the first
yeah,
generation on there. And then yeah, Black and White, then Black and White 2, which
and
is
then
kind of like a
Alpha,
sequel.
whatever you were saying earlier,
Alpha
Alpha.
Sapphire, yeah.
Yeah,
And that
which
one
was a
was
remake one, right? So that's like
hmm
yeah, that's a lot of games that are now you just cannot purchase anymore. So I wonder if they're gonna swipe in with any like Switch remakes or editions of any of those now that they're not acceptable or acceptable. That's not the right word. Now that you can't just go and purchase them as easily. I mean, the shop's been down for a while, but now the online's off too, obviously. So,
hmm
cool. That was a fun. Actually, one more Pokemon question for you. As you know, we had it back in the day, back in the Target days. We're really into Yu-Gi-Oh for a while. Me, you, Jessica, whatnot, playing some Yu-Gi-Oh. Get back into that. So we have cards, and I've collected some other cards. I have some of the Lord of the Rings Magic cards. I got like some inscription cards, which are really cool. I don't really care as much for my Pokemon cards, to be honest. Like I'm not as nostalgic for them, though I did collect some of them growing up. Is it like a prime seller's market? Should I just get rid of these things?
So when I was alluding to this venture, I've been spending the past week doing research and looking
Okay.
at Pokemon cards, and there is like as far as I don't want to say like the boat has sailed because if you were to get into Pokemon in like 2017, like pre the like pandemic time, you would have made bank. Right now, you can still make bank because some of these cards, if you have them, are very, very valuable. And this is the kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing I'm looking into. I'm looking at certain trainer boxes that are worthwhile to hold on to for a little bit because there's still a huge focus on Pokemon. Now, with your cards, if they are like the base set and they're in really good condition and you get them graded with like a PSA rating and
Mm-hmm.
you get like a really high grade on them, you can get a serious return on those cards.
Right.
So if you have some stuff that's like base sets, I would look into that. Just do like a card price check. Some of that stuff is exceptionally valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll have to take a look. I imagine mine aren't like original run kind of thing, just because of the age I was and the age when they
If
came
you see
out.
that
But
that first edition on there, maybe you traded with someone and he gave up one of them, but like if you see that little
right,
first edition stamp on there, like that's huge.
that's money. Okay, I'll look into that. I don't have a ton. Like I have way more Yu-Gi-Oh cards, of course, than I do
Hmm.
Pokemon ones. But anyway, I'll have to look into that.
Hmm.
Okay. Cool. How about we take a break here? When we come back, we'll talk about some other games we've been playing. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back. Taylor, was there anything else you wanted to shout out? I know you've been playing Warzone, of course, but anything
Hmm.
else beyond that?
Nope.
Mostly Pokemon, Call of Duty.
Pokemon and
Cool.
Rebirth Island.
Nice. Yeah, for myself, I got 2 games to shout out here. First one here is called Open Roads. These are both Game Pass games, actually, which is nice, easily accessible. Open Roads came out, I want to say 3 weeks ago. I think it came out in April, early April. This is an interesting game. This would be considered a walking simulator, which we've talked about on SideQuest before, or even before that. Me and Kirkland did a whole episode on walking simulators, like What Remains of Edith Finch and Gone Home and other Firewatch, other games like that. And we talked about it again earlier, actually, in June, because I finally played through Dear Esther, which is another classic walking sim in the genre there. But these are kind of like these first-person, narrative-focused games, usually very short, like 2 to 4 hours maximum in terms of the game time there. So Open Roads, yeah, is from a development team. They're called the Open Roads team, published by Annapurna. And the story of this is kind of interesting. I didn't even know this stuff until I was done the game and I was looking it up. But Open Roads, this is from a lot of the team that made Gone Home, which is one of the kind of quintessential walking sims. So they made Gone Home, and then they made Tacoma was their next game, which I haven't played. And then it looks like they were working on Open Roads with that studio, and then there was just all sorts of controversy with that studio, and a bunch of that team left the studio. And in a weird turn of fate, you don't really see this happen often, where all these people left the studio, but they got to bring the game with them of Open Roads. So now the studio that was like, making these things, they're doing whatever. Who knows what they're doing now? It's kind of all this controversy. Maybe they're just going to go under or something weird like that. But it's kind of like a nice story in a way that, the silver lining, I suppose, is that these people didn't like this work environment. It was pretty toxic and whatnot. And so they left, but they got to bring the game with them and continue it and finish it. And then, published by Annapurna, which is a great publisher to have too. So kind of an interesting story in that way. And interesting to track the lineage of this where, it's a lot of the same people that worked on Gone Home, but it's a different name and different coat of paint, you could say. But yeah, I played through this. Once again, it's very short, maybe 2-3 hours at most. This game kind of takes a different spin on the genre. This is a very small niche genre, but even then it's still very tropey, where often you're like going back to a family member's old decrepit abandoned house and you're discovering like this old family mystery. That's kind of like the classic thing. It's usually like maybe a bit scary, but not really horror. It's like kind of right on the edge there. Very narrative focused. Usually you're not like seeing other characters. Usually it's just you and your kind of introspective investigation of all this stuff going on. So in that way, this game is similar in that there is like a family mystery. It's related to very much around like the grandmother on your mom's side, which is like kind of the same as What Remains of Edith Finch, which is a funny thing there. You're visiting grandma's old decrepit house, which is once again a very tropey thing within the genre. But I think that it takes a much different deviation by being kind of a road trip game, actually. So you have like these different walking sim situations where you're walking around a house-like environment, picking up different postcards and letters and reading these things, uncovering things about the past. But then you're going to like different environments. So you're in like your family's house, you're going to this grandma's house, you're going to this other couple other places as well. And then in between that, you're in the car. You play as like the daughter in this family, and you're going on this road trip with your mom, and so you're having conversations. So that kind of breaks up the journey and makes it feel a bit grander in its scale, which I really enjoyed. I like that kind of seeing these different environments. That was a cool thing to kind of change up the genre a little bit there, rather than kind of just being in one environment the whole time. It's kind of got that same thing of like really highly detailed 3D environments, really beautiful stuff, a lot of little details, like every shelf, every corner has like some little bit of storytelling in it. But then another thing too that they kind of change up the art from the genre is like the character art is kind of like these 2D hand painted sort of characters, which is weird. Like at first it's quite jarring. If you like see a trailer for this or look it up, you'll see that like, man, these characters stand out in a way like way different than the environments, like the 2D characters with these 3D environments. And then the characters themselves, like when they're talking or doing stuff, it's like they're very low frame rate in an intentional way, and it makes everything feel very exaggerated, which is cool. Like every movement that they take is, just it's a very standout frame that lasts, so it kind of sticks with you. And at first it kind of weirded me out because like the characters, it's, very highly detailed and stuff, but like when they're talking, like their mouths aren't moving. It's more just like they will express certain emotions. And it threw me off, but then what kind of brought me back in is that the voice acting is really good in this. You have the great Caitlin Dever in this, who we've been talking about a lot recently from that No One Can Save You movie last year. I always forget the name of it, but she's cast as Abby in Last of Us season 2 of the TV show. And then Carrie Russell, who's been in like a million things, is like the mom in this. If you go on her IMDb, she's like in all these huge movies, right? So you have like really high level actors in this, and they do a really good job, especially Caitlin Dever, just like brings so much personality and like youthfulness to this character who's supposed to be like a teenage girl. She does like a really good job of it. And the game is kind of like melodramatic and like exaggerated in its tone, and she like helps bring that to life in a big way. So all that presentation stuff I really enjoyed as well. I think maybe where this game is a bit weaker than some of its contemporaries, like Gone Home, like if Edith Finch or Firewatch, is that like the central narrative of it isn't quite as gripping. It's like I mentioned, like kind of that tropey thing of like trying to figure out the secret life of your grandma and uncovering like what that means for your family. And it's like, it's all right, and it kind of strings you along, but like the final reveals of it aren't all that mind blowing. But I think the better part about the story, the part that was more engaging to me, is kind of the stuff along the way. Like there's a lot of in this game about your mom and the divorce that she had with your father, and that's explored from a lot of different angles that I thought were interesting. And even like thinking about the studio afterwards and the story they've gone on, and how like they kind of had this split up with their studio, right? And this kind of like almost like divorce between like people working on the game and like the original founder of the company and this company they're working for. And so I feel like maybe I'm getting too into the weeds on it, but I felt like there's maybe some meta element in there where they're kind of commenting on like this separation they had in the game development part of it. But I thought all those themes were really well done. And then like the idea of like cycles within the families, and like grief because you're doing a lot of this like right after the grandmother passes away. That's kind of like the setup of the beginning of the story, and spending time with your mom on this adventure. And so I thought those kind of like those themes, or like those side stories within this, which is pretty impressive for like a game that's like 2 to 4 hours long, that there's like enough packed in like the little in the seams, you could say, that is worthy of praise. So I thought that was a really cool part of it. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this game. Like it's short and sweet, and so maybe I don't know how much it is. Like I don't know if I could recommend buying it outright, because there's like other games I'd recommend first if you haven't played the ones I've mentioned previously. But you know, if you're a Game Pass subscriber, definitely check it out. I really had a good time with it. It took me like 2 or 3 sittings to get through the whole thing, of course. And yeah, I really hope that this isn't a situation where this team broke off. They got to finish their game, and maybe that's like the catharsis they needed. They finished the game, then they can go off and go do a million other things with their careers. I hope that the Open Roads team, you know, sticks around, and even though they named their studio after this game that they're just releasing, hopefully they can go off and make other things. And I think they've maybe are set up for making just bigger and better and cooler things going forward too, that land a bit more. But like overall, it's a really impressive game and really fun. And yeah, I love a short experience, like a short, powerful experience like this. So yeah, there you go. There's Open Roads. I had a really good time with this one, and I definitely recommend it.
Nice.
Yeah, maybe not necessarily a Taylor game. I don't think you've really ever played any of these kind of walking sim games, right?
I don't think so. When I didn't even realize Walking Sim was the official title for that. When you say Walking Sim, I'm thinking like, is that like a farming simulator, but you're walking?
Yeah, it's kind of like a derogatory term almost. I feel like, because it's like there's not really a lot of gameplay elements. You're usually just like you're just walking around an environment and like reading stuff and taking in story. And so I feel like the name started as almost just like a joke, and then that just kind of became what it was called, and I hate that. And in that Out of Man episode that me and Kirkland did talking about the genre, we had a longer discussion on like how bad the genre is, and we were pitching like other genre titles for it, but like who am I at SideQuest here to like start using this other genre name and people to know what I'm talking about? It just doesn't really make sense. So I'll just say games that are like What Remains of Edith Finch, very much like Gone Home, like some bigger games in the genre. It's kind of the best way to say it, unfortunately. But yeah, they're kind of just like a modern take on like an adventure game, is another way that I would think about it, where it's like low gameplay, more about the setting and the story of it, and just clicking on things more than like fighting things, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. Check that one out. And then the other game I wanted to shout out here is another new release. This just came out a few days ago. It's called Halibut, which is a funny name. And I've talked about this before because it's been at some showcase, maybe a Summer Game Fest. But I feel like I've known about it for a few years. It's kind of just been lingering. I think it had a long development cycle. This is developed and published by Slow Bros. I think this is like their first game as a studio. If anyone forgets what this game is, definitely YouTube a trailer. You have to see it to believe it. And Taylor, you should do the same too if you forget this one. But maybe you've seen it because it just dropped on Game Pass as well. But yeah, the coolest part about this game is that the way they made the art style of it is by like actually making claymation figures and doing stop motion animation for like everything in it, putting like claymation, putting like fabric on these characters, and then like doing the stop motion for all of the animations in it, and then like somehow porting that into a game engine, and then like putting the finishing touches on it and making it a playable game. But it's essentially like a stop motion, like a Wes Anderson type of thing that you get to play. So in that way, it's like incredibly unique. And I'm like 2 or 3 hours in, and like, yeah, the aesthetic is like my favorite part of it. It's just such a weird, cool thing, but it's very much lending to the story and the world that they're developing too. But even just like the liquid, like you're underwater in this game in like a rapture type city, and like the way the water flows in like looks really silly and interesting, and the characters all look very goofy and claymation-y as you expect, because that's what they are. So it's just like the aesthetic is the thing, and I so far it's not just style over substance. Like it's a cool game too, and I'm liking the story and the characters. But yeah, like that's what you got to talk about first with the game for sure. Is just like, wow, it looks so weird and different and interesting. I've never seen a game like it before, and that's an impressive thing to say in the year 2024. And I've played hundreds of games that this game comes out and looks and feels and plays like something I haven't played before. So that's pretty cool. Any interest from this, from just seeing the trailer and wanting to go jump in and check it out?
Looks like the time to invest in this game, like building it, blows my mind. It blows my mind. It looks fantastic though. Really, really cool.
Yeah, every time I'm playing it, I'm just wondering like, okay, how much of this like is that stop motion versus what is things that they did in the game engine afterwards? And like, I don't know where that line is. It's impossible to tell, but that's what makes it even more compelling, is that it just feels so like it's a 60 frames playing game, you know, like it feels good and moves well. But so it's like, how do they pull this off? It's really, really cool. But yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out. Once again, I'm not done it, like I said, so who knows how it's going to keep going. I don't know how long this game is either, but so far you're in this rapture-like city. The setup of the game, this is maybe minor spoilers for some early stuff, is that this civilization that you're in, this underwater city, is not on Earth, but Earth was, you know, climate change and all this, Earth was going to hell. And so these people this corporation built this ship, this vessel, and just sailed off into space. And they didn't know where they were going exactly, but they're like, okay, we'll make this sustaining ship and we'll figure out where we're going later on. And it's like 150 or 200 years, whatever it is, pass. And eventually this spacefaring ship, you know, different generations at this point, have found a planet that looks good enough. They're going to go make this their habitable planet. And then they get there and they realize that there's no land on this planet whatsoever. So it's just water. And then like the atmosphere is like completely toxic. So they pretty much just have to go underwater. So now this underwater rapture is pretty much just like the ship that's been converted, and I guess just fallen. The ship has fallen in, and you're essentially just like in this spaceship that's now underwater, and that's been turned into like shops and towns and laboratories and all these different things that you need in this ship. So the setting of it is great, and this is a bit of a spoiler for something that happens a bit later on, but I think the tone of this game is very silly. It actually feels like very inspired by Wes Anderson too, in terms of like the tone and the characters. Like there's one character in here that feels like Obi from Loki season 2. He's kind of got that sort of energy about his character, and like the game's funny. It's made me laugh a few times just in terms of like the subject matter, but also like the individual lines. It feels very much like a TV show in the way that things are going along. But I think one of my favorite things about it is like you're just going through, and for the first time, like an inciting event, I guess you could say, is that for the first time ever, this space station or this new civilization is like getting a message back from Earth. They have never communicated with Earth since they've left. And the message they get is just like Earth being like, yeah, you guys left, things were looking bad, but like it actually worked out okay and we're good now. And so now you're in just like this hellhole underwater, this worst place ever. Harold's like living this like bad life. He's not liking stuff. And then Earth's like, you know what, you guys could have stayed, but now it's like, well, now you're fucked. You're underwater. There's no way you can leave. You're not getting back to Earth. Anyone on this, it would take more than their lifetime to get back there anyway. So it's like, that's just like the perfect kind of encapsulation of the tone of this. And then in that way, it feels very much like, and maybe this part's a bit on the nose, is I feel like everything these days is about like corporations are bad. And that's like the theme of so many TV shows and games and movies that we've talked about in the last few years. And this is definitely that too, where like the company that runs this spaceship and this town, the city now, is like very corrupt and just like screwing people over constantly and not sharing information with people. And like they have these ulterior motives and they're evil and all this stuff. And so I'm curious to see how that stuff will, like that's what the setup has been. And I'm curious to see what they do with that. And if this is like a story of them overcoming that, but I don't really see how positive the message could be given everything I've been set up with so far. But I think the lightheartedness of it kind of takes away from, I guess, some of that what would otherwise be kind of traumatic stuff going on. But even then, that happens, and Harold's like, he's chill with it. He's like, yeah, whatever. This is my life. You know, this is where I live. This is the life I live. I'm just gonna go. I gotta go find this rock now because that's what he was doing before that announcement came on, and now he's gonna go back and try and find this rock again. So yeah, I definitely I'll report back on this game when I've played more of it. Maybe next week, maybe 2 weeks from now when I've finished it. I don't know how long it is, like I said, but yeah, really weird, interesting game. And yeah, the story, the characters, but then also like the setting or the visuals of it are just unlike any other game I've ever played before. So for that reason, I'm very intrigued in it and definitely going to keep playing through and hopefully see it to the end. There you go. There's Harold Halibut. Like I said, I'll report back, but a really, really cool, interesting, weird game that people should definitely be checking out. Yeah, there you go. Next up, let's jump into some news. We have kind of 3 topics here. Let's start with this. Tales of the Shire. Taylor, have you heard of this game before? Did you know about this game before today?
I had no idea this existed.
Yeah, I think I talked about it with Kirkland a couple times and maybe even Travis at some point on SideQuest, but I think whenever it's been relevant in the news, you haven't been on that episode, which is why that makes sense to me. But this is essentially like a farming sim, a Stardew Valley-like type of game, you could say Animal Crossing-like, set within the world of Lord of the Rings, set within specifically the Shire, in what I think is the city or town you're in is called Bywater, which I haven't heard of before. So I think they're, trying not to go to Bag End or like the known locations from the movies and books and such, but instead trying to go to some other place so they can kind of create their own world. But we had a teaser before, but now we have official trailer on this. What did you think of Tales of the Shire?
I think it looks like it's just gonna be a lot of fun, just a kind of a kickback experience. It looks, to my surprise, again with the name, I didn't know what to expect, but it just seems like it's a very simple life in the Shire with doing different kind of like building, farming kind of stuff like that. There's a day and night cycle. It looks like there's a season cycle. So it kind of took me by surprise seeing all that, because I feel like the track record for Lord of the Rings related games hasn't. Maybe I shouldn't say hasn't been great, but it's been kind of up and down. I don't know how the Moria game went. I know that the Gollum game was absolutely a bust, but I know that then you have Shadows of War and Shadows of Middle Earth that are like really great titles. So yeah, hit or miss, but
yeah, it's been a weird mixed bag for Lord of the Rings games recently, especially under the Embracer group, which we'll talk about shortly here as well. I'm glad that you were more positive on this. I've been excited for this game. I've been very much looking forward to it. I think this is a great idea to take let's go with a wholesome, non-combat Lord of the Rings game, because why not? Why not have some team make this cool looking game? But I was just really unimpressed with the trailer itself and the footage of it. And for me, also the variety. And, this is the first trailer, and so I'm sure we'll get more information as things go on. But, the things that they're highlighting here is like, They had this kind of pun where they said forage friendships in it, which I think was like 2 things. So they're showing that you're like foraging ingredients, which makes sense as like this hunter-gatherer type. But then there's also the friendships part of it. But I didn't really get much of a vibe of like personalities or characters. Like it doesn't seem like there's voice acting. We didn't really see what the dialogue is like. We don't really know what like quests are like or what characters are going to be like in general. But I guess I wasn't grabbed by any character in here, and we see a Gandalf looking type at one point. So I don't know how much they're going to use established characters, but I guess I didn't really vibe with the characters and the design of them. I wasn't particularly into, just visually speaking. So that's one thing. I think the part that I'm most interested in is like the decorating your home part of it, because I like doing that in games, and I think building like a Shire home seems pretty fun. It seems like it's more centered on the inside rather than the outside, which makes sense because you're kind of just tucked in a hill there. But that part seemed all right. But I guess, my biggest takeaway is that like I didn't really get Lord of the Rings vibes from this trailer. Outside of like, okay, a guy kind of looked like Gandalf a little bit, and like I know what a Shire home looks like. Like, I don't know, I guess the chibi art style like makes it not necessarily look like hobbits and more just like a chibi art style kind of game.
Fair. Yeah.
That's fair. I'm trying to remember the name of the game that Muds was playing recently, and I can't remember off the top of my head. Fae Farm was the one that she's been playing, which is like another one of these farming sim cozy games. And this looks exactly like that, which like nothing wrong with that. But now I'm thinking this game looks more like Fae Farm than it does a Lord of the Rings thing. So I guess that's, I don't know, maybe that's my issue. And it's like, I'm not expecting dwarves and elves in this. Like I want it to be a Shire specific game, but I also want there to be like some more Lord of the Rings iconography to it. So I don't know, maybe I'm asking for too much there, but I maybe got to see more. And then they kind of just had this ambiguous like explore by water. So I don't know how much you're going to explore beyond the town itself into like woods or the fields and farms and other things like that. But there just wasn't a whole lot in the gameplay side of things that really called to me. And even like the farming sim elements in terms of like min-maxing farming and planting different crops, like we didn't really see a lot of that here, right?
That's true.
It's more just like hanging out. So yeah, I don't know. I'm there's a good chance I would buy this if it's like a lower priced game, which I think it should be based on like seems like how much there is here. But yeah, I was hoping that this first trailer, like I feel like I had very low expectations and it somehow let those down. So I don't know, maybe that's not a good sign for once again the state of Lord of the Rings games. But I don't know. Do you see this as a game that you would pick up? Because I don't think you're big into like the cozy games as like a genre.
I don't think I would necessarily pick it up. But if it were to drop on Games Pass, then maybe I could try it. Because again, it gives me kind of the Harvest Moon vibes, not necessarily Animal Crossing.
Sure, yeah.
To that extent. But that's enough to kind of entice me to dip my toes in, especially because it's Lord of the Rings, and I'm curious with that. I doubt we would get anything where like a DLC where like Urukai attack or something like that. It's just going to be very lighthearted.
That would be crazy. Yeah, I don't think I'd want to see that. But yeah, I mean, I hope that we get, as we get more trailers and more just interviews with the developers and stuff, we get more information here that's more engaging. Because like I said, like I don't want combat in it. It's not what I'm looking for. But I think just more decoration, more like intriguing stuff that you're doing with these characters, maybe a little bit more with the exploration and seeing these different environments. And I don't know, maybe even just like I'll get attached to some of the characters. But I don't know. I feel like I need a little bit more than what was given to me here on this first trailer today. So yeah, there you go. And then along with that, Embracer Group, who we just hate because Embracer Group is just the worst. Here's the timeline. Well, not an exact timeline, but Embracer Group, for anyone who forgets, this company that has a lot of money somehow. No one knows where this money comes from. And they start buying up all these studios. They start buying up all this IP. And then sometime last year, I guess we're expecting like this big deal to come through with like a couple $1 billion that would help them. And I guess that deal didn't come through. And then they just started laying people off like crazy, like laying off an insane amount of people. I think they've had the most layoffs out of anyone in what has been 2 years of an insane amount of layoffs. So it's just like, fuck you. Why did you acquire this stuff? Why are you doing all this? You have no business plan. Clearly, like this is just such a mess. And I hate all of this. They're just the worst. And then at some point they sold Gearbox, I guess, to make some more capital. Hopefully, so they don't have to lay off as many people. But now their new thing is that one thing that hopefully is going to help them and not have to do as many layoffs is by splitting off into kind of 3 sub companies, and they're going to kind of focus on their specific niche. So the first one, Asmodee Group is what they're calling it. And this is more focused on like board games, because I guess they have like a bunch of board game IP and stuff. So we don't really talk about that, but that's one of the 3 arms. The other 2 is what they're, one of them's called Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends. And they describe this, I'm getting this information from The Verge, so it's The Verge here. This company, which will be renamed from Embracer Group, is described as the creative powerhouse in AAA game development and publishing. So they'll retain ownership of things like Dead Island, Killing Floor, Kingdom Come Deliverance, Tomb Raider, the Lord of the Rings IPs. So those are some of the biggest IPs that they own as a Embracer Group, and so that's one helm of it. The other side of it is going to be what they're calling Coffee Stain and Friends. And this is described as a diverse gaming entity that will focus on indie, mid-market, and free-to-play games. So that would include things that they currently have, such as Deep Rock Galactic, Goat Simulator, Satisfactory, Wreckfest, Teardown, Valheim. So yeah, there's kind of like, I guess what you call the indie label and then like the AAA label. I think that makes sense to a certain extent, and hopefully because they can divide and conquer, they can get some better leadership for these different companies, and they can help focus on those things. And, the Coffee Stain one, like the indie one, can hopefully kind of go in that more Annapurna or Devolver Digital type of realm and just focus on that indie stuff. And then you have the Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends, which is a weird name to pick for that. Like, I guess they're just picking like their biggest IP and naming it after that, but it's just weird. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. But I guess they want to get away from the Embracer Group name and get people to forget about that name. That's probably a big part of this. And so you have the indie side and then like the more AAA side. And so that makes sense. But then the part where I get worried about this is later on, like a quote from the founder, the CEO, is this: the move has been made with the intention to unleash the full potential of each team and provide them with their own leadership and strategic decision or direction. Okay, that sounds good. But then this is the start of a new chapter, a chapter that I intend to remain part of as an active, committed, and supportive shareholder of all three new entities. So it's like, okay, well, this doofus is still, at the helm of all, he's still got at the wheel directing all these things and ultimately making a lot of these big decisions. So hopefully that doesn't end up being the case and there's more power put into the people who are the leaders of this, but then you got to hope that they get the right leaders. And then there's all these other things that still need to line up. So I don't see this being a huge change overall, but I hope that this helps them by like being able to focus on these different divisions within this. And maybe the last thing I'll say before you can share your thoughts is that I know that they like also have some sort of rights to do with some movie or TV related thing. Like, I think they have the movie rights for Lord of the Rings, I believe, and I could be wrong, and I'd love for someone to fact check me on that. But, like, what does that mean for that? Like, are they just going to sell that off and give that to someone else? I think that would be a good thing for them to do. You don't want to spread yourself too thin here, and they're already trying to do that, like, address that issue that they have by doing that. But, like, I don't know what that means for, like, a Lord of the Rings movie. Obviously, there's Lord of the Rings TV stuff. Amazon has some ownership of that, right, with Rings of Power. But I don't know where the movie stuff falls in. So we'll keep an eye on some of that stuff too. But I know I threw a lot at you here, but what do you think about this? And is this hopeful, or do you think not much is going to change?
I don't think much is going to change because I feel like when you're a business owner, you can benefit by being an umbrella company and kind of diversifying and splitting off into multiple smaller companies. I want to say that there are definitely probably like financial tax benefits to doing such a thing.
Maybe, yeah.
And so, I mean, if it's coming from the goodness of their heart to come out with a different division focusing on different things, like you said, like AAA titles, indie mobile gaming, tabletops, I think that's maybe, hopefully in the long run, that's good because then you're getting the dedicated minds behind these certain types of games to be working on them instead of just a whole mixed bag. But I don't know. I'm not sticking with the optimistic approach with this one necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, really, I guess my main hope at this point would just be that like they don't continue to close studios and lay people off because they've done so much of that already. And so hopefully like this, maybe the tax write-offs are good for them and that helps them be more sustainable and helps them not have to do as many layoffs. But then I could also see it the opposite way where they save some money on taxes there, but then they can still lay people off and then they can just make more money to the CEO. So it's like, I don't know. I just can't look at this in an optimistic lens just because of the history of this freaking group over the last like 3 or 4 years has just been like almost exclusively bad news and not good for the industry. And we haven't really seen too much of value that come out from them that's been like big new releases either. Like if anything, it's been like things that they've acquired already like midway or that were already finished development have got like new updates or something like that. So hopefully they can turn it around here, but I'd be curious to see if they get anyone of note in these roles, like people that we would know of. Because I mean, this is like I think a Sweden-based thing, like the owner of this or something like that, Norway, something like that. So I don't know if maybe they would just get other people that they already have, but I feel like they kind of need some new people in these positions, maybe based on how things have looked so far. But yeah, so there you go. I think it's interesting information. I'll definitely keep an eye on that. But I guess the other thing to be wary about is like going forward, if you ever see the company name Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends, know that as Embracer Group, they're trying to hide between this new mask so that probably they buy some faith from the public audience and whatnot, public facing stuff. But it's still the same old Embracer. It's the same guy who's going to make the same decisions. And so hopefully things can change and hopefully this is a new good path for them. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. And then lastly, I wanted to save this for last. And actually, maybe we'll take our last ad break and then we'll come back and get into our last piece of news. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back. So like I said, I wanted to save this to last because this is potential spoilers. People might not want to hear some of these things. So if so, you can bow out. But we are going to be talking about some Xbox leaks that have happened. So this is leaks of the potential or the upcoming showcase, I should say, the June Classic Summer Showcase that Xbox does. Here are some leaks from things. So if you don't want to hear that, thanks for joining us thus far, and we'll see you next week. But Taylor, we'll go into this. First, talking about the Call of Duty stuff. So two things here. One is apparently the next Call of Duty game, so I guess coming out this year, is going to be Call of Duty Black Ops Gulf War. So yeah, what do you think about that? Does that interest you, just in terms of like the setting there, it being a Black Ops game, but it also the Gulf War, I think, is like a 90s thing. I don't know if have we ever had a Call of Duty game in the 90s? This is a very specific question, but I feel like, Cold War, the World War Ones and Twos, Advanced Warfare, Modern Warfare. Like I feel like we've never really had a 90s sort of setting.
Black Ops 2 was the early 1990s, apparently.
Okay.
Black Ops Cold War is 1980s to
So pretty close.
1990s. So there's a couple in there. But
feels like maybe they're grasping at straws a little bit with the Gulf War, but at some point when you release a game a game every year, you are grasping at straws. So I don't know. Does that interest you at all that we're going back to Black Ops and or the Gulf War part of it?
I like Black Ops. I do enjoy it, and as long as it's not World War II, I'm very happy with that. I mean, there's 7 titles that are all World War II based Call of Duties. That's
Crazy.
one too many, if you ask me.
You think
Black
6
Ops
is the perfect number? You think 7's just that's where the straw broke the camel's back there?
I would take 6. I would.
Okay.
I think Call of Duty WW2 is too much. Call of Duty Vanguard, I really did like Vanguard. And the other ones, you got World of War, Call of Duty 1, 2, and 3, those original ones on the old Xbox. So yeah. I think it legit is one too many. Nice. But Gulf War, I think any addition to the Black Ops series, I'm happy with. I hated Call of Duty Ghosts, so we don't need anything with that. But Black Ops has gone from, the 70s up to like the year 2070 with Black Ops 4.
Right.
They've was it Black Ops 4 or is that which one is that?
Well, Advanced Warfare, is that not Advanced? There was 2
Warfare.
Advanced Warfares, right? Or was there just one? There's one.
Infinite Warfare and then Advanced Warfare.
Yeah.
Advanced Warfare was 2060, and I think this person just put Black Ops 4 in there twice. But anyways, I think that there is definitely a place now for them to do these kind of like modern day Call of Duty titles and then these previous year dated Call of Duty titles. I think that now that they've got this platform when you go into the Call of Duty hub and you basically just install your next Call of Duty game in there and it's just one giant interface, and this is just going to feel like a massive upgrade to what we've gotten so far, because we got Modern Warfare 2 and then they dropped Modern Warfare 3 after, and it's just so, my mind is still blown away at how unprecedented this is, where you have the game just kind of like, Modern Warfare 2 is still relevant, but it's just upgraded basically to a new Call of Duty title. All the old guns from those games are ported over into the new game. Everything that you've unlocked ports over, and that same, I'm imagining, is going to happen here. So I don't feel like I'm necessarily at any kind of a loss. I just feel like my collection is just growing and I have more access. I don't play Call of Duties necessarily for the story, even though I heard Modern Warfare, the Modern Warfare titles definitely have an interesting story. Well, I haven't beaten all of them.
I still have that on my list of topics one day, is to do that retro with you of Modern Warfare.
Oh, I'd love to do the retro for that. Yeah. But I'm excited for this. I am.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm most curious about with this is outside the game itself, but it's just that this is going to be the first Call of Duty game releasing post acquisition, going through right now that acquisition's finally happened and Diablo 4 is on Game Pass, right? So I'm just very, like, I've been in the camp where I think they're going to put the new Call of Duty on Game Pass day one. And yes, it's still on PlayStation for many years, maybe on the Switch too. Who knows? They've talked about how they're going to continue doing that as well. But I do think they're going to put it into Game Pass day one. So I'm just very curious what that's going to mean for the numbers and the sales. And if that's like I just don't think Game Pass is big enough yet for that to be a huge issue for them in terms of like losing sales. And in fact, I think it'll get more people if anything, more people playing the game, because you'll have people who have been on the fence like me, who are the only investment I'm putting into Call of Duty is playing Warzone, but I'm not putting any dollar. I haven't put a dollar into Call of Duty in like a decade. Like I will definitely play this day one on Game Pass, play through the story for the first time in a very long time, and that will be fun. And I'm excited to hopefully do that with you if it is truly on Game Pass. Of course, that's all assuming, because we still haven't got that confirmation. But yeah, that's the thing I'm most curious about. I think the setting, I mean, I don't know if it means a lot to me, because Black Ops, I love that first Black Ops games, but that was like the last Call of Duty game I played until Warzone. So I haven't played 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, however many Black Ops games there are. So it's like I'm not super invested in it, but that first one is like one of my favorite Call of Duty games. It's a great game overall. So I think it's cool that we're going back to that. I'm interested in it, and I don't really know much about the Gulf War in terms of setting or things like that. So I can't really comment too much on like what that would look like in terms of the campaign side of things. But yeah, I'm really curious to see what that looks like. I think that makes sense, and I think that'd be that's pretty cool. It's good for Xbox that they can have that kind of thing at their showcase now, right? That's locked in. That's something they can put out, because that's a big deal. Normally, Call of Duty events have kind of been like more scattered into other places, or they're kind of on their own because they're so big. But I think it's a really good piece of the puzzle that they can put that in their showcase, and something like that would be a great closer or opener. Part of the rumor too is that we're going to hear about this game prior to that event, and that'll be like where you get more information. So I could see that being a situation where it's like, here's a 2-minute trailer, here's the name of the game, it's coming out this year, and then tune in at the Xbox event for 15 minutes of additional information. I think that would make a lot of sense. I think that's a good move as well, because that's a good bit of marketing leading into that as well. So looking forward to see what that looks like. And then along with this is that apparently this would be the time when they would bring Call of Duty games to Game Pass in a big way. So still to this point, as of April 22nd, the only thing we've seen is Diablo 4 in terms of that acquisition stuff coming to the platform so far. And so I think Call of Duty is a really good, if you're going to prioritize anything, Diablo 4 makes sense because that was a newer game still. But then I think after that, Call of Duty makes sense of get all that back catalog on there, get all those games in there, because that would bring a lot of people to that subscription service, especially, like I said, with the new one being day one. That would bring a lot of people in, I think, to want to subscribe and check that out. So that's pretty exciting for me, because that's a lot of games, and I have not played a lot of them. So I'd definitely jump in and play some old campaigns, or jump in and play the zombies is maybe a big highlight for me, because I've missed a lot of those newer zombie maps, and I want to play those with you particularly. But yeah, I think there's just so many of these games that I've missed over the last few years that I'd love to just jump in and just see what they feel like, see what I missed in those years. And so I think this would be a huge hit if they can say, like, that could be a huge day one or same day drop of, like, during the showcase, say, here's 15 Call of Duty games in Game Pass right now. You can go download them in this moment. So yeah, like I said, I think it'd be a good priority for them if they're going to focus on. There's so much Activision Blizzard stuff. Like, it's going to take a long time for them to get all of that into the service. But I think Call of Duty makes sense as the priority there. But you've kind of owned all these games. Like, does this excite you at all that you're getting them in there?
I've gotten every one since World of War probably, and I've played through them religiously. And it doesn't matter to me if they're on there. I hope that they do go on there if I had an actual say on the matter, because like then we could play zombies and whatnot. And I don't think it's any strange coincidence that all the old Call of Duty games got their servers back up and running. I think that there's something in the works.
When did that happen?
Oh, it was 2023, because I remember when they went and booted them back up.
So post-acquisition, but prior to it being,
it was
like,
post-acquisition,
official?
because I went back and was playing zombies online again, and it was
Nice.
the bee's knees. I was loving it. So
yeah, I'm very much looking forward to doing that with you when these things drop. This is pure speculation part, but do you think that this would be a day one drop, as I mentioned, or do you think it'd be like still later in the year kind of thing when they would actually hit the service?
I could see it being day one. I mean, just go
That'd be
go
good,
hard.
right?
Yeah.
I think in general they want that. They want to have something that you can go play today, and I think that would make sense. And I hope that is the case too, because then I feel like that opens up the door for later this year for other drops. Because I'm just so excited to see all the random games that I don't even think about as Activision Blizzard hitting that service, and I just love browsing that Game Pass library and downloading new and old things that I've never played before and dabbling in all sorts of things. So I'm very just excited to do that. So hopefully that does start happening soon. I mean, hopefully we even get stuff before the showcase, even if there's other non-Call of Duty things that they want to do prior to that. Um, next up is Gears of War 6 is rumored to be here. Tell me about this.
I mean, I thought we were gonna get this a long time ago, to be honest. I'm excited.
2019 was Gears 5, right?
Oh, I think so. I
Because it was
can't
before Series
remember.
X, so yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a good minute ago. And that's the first Gears game I did not buy because they dropped it on Games Pass day one.
Right.
Uh, I enjoyed the multiplayer though. I remember. I feel like at this point I remember it being kind of like a cult following now at this stage. I think Gears 4 definitely brought a lot of the old fan base back. And again, I'm not speaking from any statistically factual position here, but I just feel like Gears 5 might have kind of like fuzzed out a little bit. And then when you add such a delay on getting that sixth one, I don't know if the hype is necessarily still there. I hope it is, because I think whatever story that they've been telling so far, they need to kind of wrap it up. So I think a Gear 6 would definitely work, but if it drops on Games Pass, I'll definitely get it. I'll try it out, but I don't think I'd buy the game at this point. I think Gears 4 is probably the last one that I'd buy.
Yeah. How into the multiplayer did you get of 5 when that came out?
Oh,
Like, was that like a thing where you're playing for like a couple weekends, or was it more like a few months of like really trying to get into it?
I was in there for a few weekends. Nothing will ever compare to Gears 3 when that dropped, and I went hard. I was skipping school just to be playing multiplayer. I was in the zone with that. Yeah, Gears 4, though, I enjoyed it. But yeah, Gears 5, I probably played more multiplayer than I actually engaged with my time in the campaign, to be honest. And they had some cool DLC. They had Terminator, Sarah Connor,
Oh, nice.
and like
Okay.
Arnold's.
That
like,
actually fits really well with that.
It
setting.
does. It
Yeah.
really, really does. Yeah, I think even Dave Bautista was a character in there too. So
Wow, interesting.
yeah, they did some cool crossovers.
Yeah, I feel like Batista to me still feels like more newly a huge celebrity, you know, post wrestling into like the actor stuff. It's like, man, Guardians 1 came out so long ago now that I guess he's been like in the zeitgeist for a long time at this point. So I need to think about that. Yeah, Gears, I haven't talked about it in a while, I guess, but I'm not really a huge Gears head, as people, longtime listeners will know. So I'm not particularly excited about this, but I think it makes sense. The timing on it makes sense. I did look it up, and yeah, 2019 was Gears 5, and I don't think there was any DLC for that, really. Like, maybe there was some like random skins, but I don't remember there being like a huge rollout of DLC. But yeah, now that I'm in the Xbox ecosystem, I'm on Game Pass, I'll definitely check this out day one. I'd love to jump in there for a review with you. I don't know if I'd play through the whole thing, but like, you know, impressions of the story, and definitely play a few weekends of the multiplayer. I've never loved the multiplayer, but you know, it's a new game. I'd love to check it out, jump in. So yeah, I think that's huge for them as well. That's, once again, like, that could start or end the show. That could be one of those big heavy hitters. And I think Gears still is huge for Xbox as an exclusive, even though they now technically own a ton of other exclusives. But in terms of it being like an identity piece for Xbox, Halo and Gears are still that 1 and 2, even if there's like other bigger things that are owned by them now as a company. So I think it's important to keep that going. And like, I think Tactics came out post 5, right? Because that came out,
I believe so.
yeah, more recently. But there hasn't been a ton of Gears stuff in the meantime. It's been fairly quiet, and so I think this is a good timing for it. Do you think this would be something that would be potentially ready this year? They've already announced like other. I'm going to immediately answer my own question and say I don't think so, because I feel like they would have wanted maybe that showcase they did back in January where they talked about those games. I feel like they maybe would have wanted to put Gears there if it was going to come out this year. So I'm going to say an announcement this year, releasing next year, 2025. Is there a traditional time when those games come out? Like, are they a November drop? I feel like they might be, right?
Gears 1 and 2 were November. Gears 3 was April. Gears 4 was October again. So if I had to say, Gears 5 was September. Fall is definitely the high percentage here of release dates.
And I think with Xbox, it's less about like trying to hit those dates anymore, and more about just like trying to line up their release dates across a calendar year and trying to have something big in every quarter. So I could see them pushing it forward or back, and we don't really have any release dates for them in 2025. We know of games that are probably going to come out that year, but we don't really have release dates yet. So I think I could see at some point 2025 being the release date for a Gears 6.
I agree. I think this is for sure a 2025 title.
Nice. Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that. I think that'd be a big, fun, excited hype announcement to see. And then the last one here we have is State of Decay 3 is apparently going to be at the showcase. And this was the most exciting thing for me at this, just looking through the leaks. I still have not played one or two, but that first trailer that we got like 2 or 3 years ago now, with like that dead deer in the snow, whatever. Like I haven't gone back and watched it or anything recently, but that was a great trailer. Like I'm really excited. I think that like a snowy setting for this zombie like apocalypse sort of game could be really fun, and I think the multiplayer element I think will be really fun considering me, you, and Travis at least are on Game Pass, so we could go check that out together. So and I've been saying for a while, like, man, where the frick is this game? Why have they not been showing it for so long? And so hopefully it's a situation where they showed it to get it out there to say, hey, this is what the studio is working on, and then we're going hibernating until this game is done and ready to go. And so hopefully this is a similar situation where it's stated Decay 3, here, huge new trailer, 2 or 3 minutes long, and then 2025 release date. Once again, I don't think it'd be a fall hitter for this year, but I think setting up that 2025 year between Gears and State of Decay could be like a really nice kind of early setup, because they already have a good amount of things coming out this year, right? So, so yeah, what do you think about that as the actual guy who's played a lot of State of Decay?
I hope 2025 is it. I hope we get this reveal here for it again, which just adds some more excitement onto the fire. I love State of Decay 2, and I remember back on Games Pass, me and my friend, we were just looking for games that we could play together, and we just downloaded a whole bunch of multiplayer titles they had on there. And this is one of them. He tried it and he was just having a blast. And so he told me about it, got me on there, and then we were both in the same on his world, on his map, and we're going around clearing nests, and just the world building kind of aspect here, where you're just trying to recruit survivors, do missions, and feeling there's certain zombie games that have really had an impact on me. Dying Light, when you're out at nighttime, is one of the scariest things alive. And then when you're playing this game and you're out at nighttime and you're running low on gas in your car, and you gotta just run around, you have no proper safety net. And if you die, you have other characters you can jump to in your world, but your characters are all unique and have certain attributes and statistics, and they definitely level up as you progress, but you don't want to lose your characters. A funny little thing that I appreciate is like when my friend were trying to get like cars and escape, and like I remember him dying, his body reanimated into a zombie and like comes at you. It's just fun.
That's cool.
It's cool. Yeah. So there's lots of amazing little things in this franchise. And yeah, just to get the snow element, I'm hoping we get like seasons changing, because there's definitely a big day and night cycle. And you foraging for supplies is such a tricky thing, but it's really a really nice game. And so I never got around to the first one, but I played the heckin' daylights out of the second one, and it definitely has still a strong community behind it. So this is easily one of my most anticipated whenever they announce a date for it.
Yeah. I mean, once again, like State of Decay 2, I'm just gonna look up some release dates here before we close off for the day, because State of Decay 2 came out 2018. Undead Labs is the developer here, and they have not had a game in between that time. So, it sounds like a game that they've been supporting, I would assume, if it's kind of like online multiplayer focused. But yeah, 5 years between 1 and 2. We're now sitting at 6 years between 2 and 3, with no actual announcement of, we're assuming, this 2025 thing. So I think that timeline does make sense. Games are getting bigger and harder to make as the days go on. And this is probably their most ambitious one yet. And maybe they got more funding from Xbox, and maybe they've just been given more development time because of that safety net of having Xbox or Microsoft as their parent company now. So that's changed for sure since State of Decay 2. But yeah, I think this is a potential opportunity here for like a really sweet game for them. And yeah, I had so much fun playing Dead Island 2 recently that I'm very much itching for more zombie related stuff. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one. And I think even if you have those 4 things, and obviously you'd have a lot more at a showcase, but that's shaping up to be like a really strong June showcase, I think. And even if the wind is taken out of the sails a little bit because of the leak here, I'm still very much looking forward to that one, and I hope we do see all of those games, plus some extra bonus stuff as well. I'm sure we'll get a big new trailer for Indie and all these other games that they showed at that January Direct as well. So yeah, any final thoughts on that stuff there, Taylor?
No, I think I'm good.
Right on. Well, this is a very fun episode, very impromptu topics, but I think it worked out really nicely for us. Next week, we'll have some more side quest for you. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.